The UN Security Council has held an emergency meeting in New York. At that meeting, both Russian and US proposals on a mechanism to investigate Syria's alleged chemical attack failed to pass through. Washington's resolution was vetoed by Moscow, while two consecutive Russian proposed drafts then failed to get the necessary minimum votes. Well, for the details, let's cross live now to RT's Caleb Maupin in New York. Hi there, Caleb. So can you tell us the latest?
Well, when the meeting concluded, there was no resolution. The countries that make up the 15-member body that lead the United Nations had not come to an agreement. Now, representing Russia, Nebenzia of the Russian Federation, he spoke and he basically pointed out that Russia's resolution would have mandated that the OPCW chemical experts that are on their way to Syria actually visit the site in Duma and actually visit the site where the alleged chemical attack took place and get to the bottom of what exactly happened. Not simply assign blame, but determine what went on in Duma. Furthermore, Russia was willing to provide military escorts and basically make sure that the chemical experts were safe when they visited the site. Now, Nebenzia was quite clear about the threat that vetoing this resolution posed and how the world is in kind of a dangerous situation as we see a clear disagreement over Syria and how to move forward. This is the representative of the Russian Federation speaking to the UN Security Council.
This is something that says a lot to us and worries us a lot. It's not clear to us why they voted against the resolution. Maybe the UK ambassador has given an answer to it. They simply should have said they were against it because it was Russia's resolution. You say we are good at playing games, but I would say you are good at threatening. And your threats to Syria worry us a lot.
Now, Nikki Haley, representing the United States, when she spoke, she criticized and urged countries to vote against Russia's resolution because she said that it gave Russia too much power and, as she put it, put them in the driver's seat. That was her logic and her argument. Nebenzia characterized the U.S. resolution as simply recreating the gym, and now Nikki Haley said that the Russian resolution, well, this is what she had to say about it. Nikki Haley.
The resolution puts Russia and the Assad regime itself in the driver's seat for making arrangements for the fact-finding mission investigators. We're just supposed to trust that the same government who says everything about the Duma attack was fake will work in good faith with the OPCW.
Now, Russia's medical experts and chemical experts have visited the site of the alleged chemical attack in Duma, and they are saying they just don't see the evidence. They're not finding traces of the chemical, they're not finding victims in hospitals or dead bodies, and furthermore, they're not finding any eyewitnesses that say they saw an attack take place. Now, interestingly, we have heard from Heather Nauert, the spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, and unlike Nikki Haley and some of the other forces, she is not ready to say who is to blame for this attack. She says that the State Department of the United States does not know who carried out this chemical attack. This is Heather Nauert of the U.S. State Department.
Now, we do know that some sort of a substance was used, a chemical was used. We're just not sure at this point today exactly what was used.
Now, at this point, chemical inspectors from the OPCW, chemical experts, technicians, are on their way to Syria. But the 15-member body that leads the United Nations has not agreed on what their mission will be. Both resolutions, the one from Russia and the one from the United States, have been defeated. They've been vetoed. So it's pretty clear that there is not unity in the international community about what the OPCW will be doing. Now, every country agreed that the use of chemical weapons was unacceptable, and they also agreed that there needed to be an investigation to determine what exactly happened. However, the nature of that investigation, that was the point of disagreement. And there was not a resolution. At this point, there is not a unified agreement, and there is not a resolution that's been passed by the 15-member body, the United Nations Security Council, which leads the United Nations.
Indeed. Sounds like we have a position of stalemate. Caleb Maupin in New York, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Well, these are the pictures from inside Duma at the scene of the alleged attack. Russia's military and chemical experts searched the area but couldn't find any traces of banned substances, and that neither did they find any patients treated for chemical poisoning in Duma's hospitals. This has led Russia to claim the reported chemical attack is fake and has been staged. Well, to discuss this issue further, we are now joined by former US diplomat Jim Jatras. Jim, thank you very much indeed for joining us on quite a night there.
Thank you,
I mean, what can we expect now from the US now that the UN Security Council meeting has failed to adopt a course of action?
It's not clear. Over the last day or so, the word from the White House, from all the U.S. government spokespeople, seems to be that a decision was imminent and military action itself might be imminent, on the same pattern as we saw a year ago over the Khan Shaykhun incident. On the other hand, there's been a report today that some kind of high-level meeting between military experts, Russian and American, is supposed to take place next week. According to the report we just heard, OPCW investigators are on their way to Duma. Maybe there's a sliver of hope that the attack will be held off until some cooler heads prevail. But my fear is that the exact opposite will occur, that the attack will be launched in order to prevent a neutral investigation by the OPCW. Let's remember, unlike the previous alleged chemical weapon uses in Syria, where the spot of the alleged attack was held by the jihadists who prevented an investigation, here we now have the Syrian government in control of Duma and opening the doors for the international inspectors to come in and make an impartial investigation. Let's hope that takes place.
And also, in the meantime, the US State Department, they don't know what chemical weapon was used, but are, as you said, considering that military option. I mean, why is there this rush to strike?
I think the rush to strike is to precisely prevent a real investigation. Let's be honest about this, Kate. This has nothing to do with the alleged use of chemical weapons. This has everything to do with a geopolitical agenda that wants to put the Iranians in a box, wants to confront the Russians in Syria, that is really upset over the thought that the effort that's been going on for 7 years by Western powers and our local friends like Saudi Arabia has failed, and that the Assad government will remain in power. They've been seeking a pretext to try to change that, maybe to kill Assad, and this is what they have fastened on. Remember, the Russians have been warning for weeks against a provocation of this sort, and then right on cue, right after President Trump says we're getting out of Syria, this happens. So this really has nothing to do with the truth or falsehood of the allegations about Duma.
So on that basis then, I mean, the prospect of Washington holding off on taking action in Syria until at least the OPCW investigation's taken place is unlikely then?
There's only one man who can make that happen, and that is President Trump. The guy, in a sense, who started this whole thing by about a week ago saying we're getting out of Syria, Daesh is finished, we have no further business there, that provoked this huge reaction across the political spectrum from the neoconservatives to the liberal interventionists and the Democratic Party saying, no, we can't have that. Something's got to be done. Well, as it turns out, what got done was this provocation in Duma. Can he stand against that? His recent words indicate that he's been flipped. Maybe not. Maybe he'll actually will put the brakes on and say, hold on, let's see what's going on. And of course, if he does that, he'll be the accusations will be redoubled against him that he's just a puppet of Vladimir Putin.
Well, let's also have a listen to what the British ambassador had to say. They had tough words for Russia for vetoing the US draft resolution. Let's just have a quick listen to what she had to say.
Conversely, by vetoing, Russia has crossed a line in the international order.
I mean, what does she mean by that line remark? What do you think?
Kate, with all due respect, Britain has even less credibility in all this than the United States does. Let's remind everybody of the Skripal affair that's been playing out over the last few weeks, that they are making these accusations for political reasons the same way that Nikki Haley and the Washington authorities are. Again, it has nothing to do with the truth and falsehood of whether or not chemical weapons were used in Duma or who used them. It has to do with their political agenda in Syria.
Well, and on that note as well, let's also listen to what Nikki Haley said. She said the UN has proved its uselessness. Let's have a listen.
Yesterday, I said that history will record this moment when we either lived up to our responsibility as a Security Council or showed our complete failure to protect the Syrian people. Today, we have our answer.
Well, Jim, what do you think of that claim, then?
For 7 years, the so-called international community that she's referring to has been supporting these vicious jihad groups trying to overthrow a secular government that would massacre all the Alawites, that would massacre all the Christians. That's her idea of defending the Syrian people. This is beyond bizarre. This is really reprehensible that somebody would distort the realities in Syria in that way. This has nothing to do with defending the Syrian people. It has everything to do with thwarting a geopolitical agenda of overthrowing the legitimate government in Syria.
Indeed. Worrying times, aren't they? Jim Jatras, former US diplomat, many thanks for your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, despite the obvious tension between the Russian and American envoys, before the meeting they still exchanged a friendly kiss. They also talked for a while, with Vasily Nebenzia seeming unwilling to let Nikki Haley go. The chat ended with a handshake. Well, meanwhile, the EU Organisation for the Safety of Air Navigation has issued an alert. It says all flights in the Mediterranean area within the next 72 hours should exercise caution in planning due to possible airstrikes in Syria. Russia's Federal Air Transport Agency also informed the country's airlines of possible danger in the area. Well, European powerhouses Germany and France have also issued their own statements on the situation, blaming Russia for its alleged obstruction of the investigation.
Internationally, Russia has so far been preventing opportunities to examine things and ascertain responsibility. We don't see this approach as constructive or satisfying. It can't continue like that anymore.
Any decision we take will not affect Syria's allies. But if the decision is taken, it will of course target Syria's chemical capabilities.